And this is our book club discussion of Masterful Marketing by, there we go. I love it when the iPad flips and does the backwards thing. Masterful Marketing by Alan Weiss and Lisa Larter. I kind of got the feeling that Alan Weiss wrote most of it, but I'm sure any book is probably a group effort. But I'm Paula Williams with ABCI. We help aviation companies sell more of their products and services.
And I'm John Williams. I work for her.
Cool. And we have Michael Duke with DBT Aero. You want to introduce yourself and tell us what you're up to lately?
Well, I'm Michael Duke. I'm with DBT Aero. The DBT is our unique wing design. It's called a double box tail, which is what gives us the ultra efficient flight. And our focus is to make that ultra efficient flight, which is more sustainable. Also, we want to make that affordable and roll it out throughout the world.
Absolutely. And we've got Grumpy with us as well. Hi, John.
Hello.
Good to see you, or good to hear you. I don't see you yet.
Yeah, I'm working on it. I just got it turned.
You are? Happy to see you. How have you been?
Everything's good right now, actually.
Excellent. So what are you up to lately? We're just doing introductions and we'll jump into the book.
Trying to get more jobs, trying to get jobs, period. And I have a few things that are out there brewing, so that's a good thing.
And you're looking for planes to value, planes to appraise?
Yes, helicopters, aircraft, all the.
So do you appraise aircraft businesses or just the planes?
Just the planes at this point. I mean, I could do the other, but.
Yeah, so things like flight schools, I guess a lot of the value is in the aircraft,
Yeah. I could get with somebody, they could do the business, I could do the aircraft, and then work together and come up with a number.
Yeah.
What about inventory then? Parts and inventory, is that part of it?
That's part of the business side, yeah. But we don't forget that.
Mm-hmm.
That's curious. We sadly lost an aviator in Utah yesterday who runs an aircraft manufacturing business. And so his business will likely be up for sale soon.
Oh, no. There have been so many of those this year. It's been a bad year for aviators. We all need to be careful and take our vitamins. That's the way it goes.
Yeah, if they need something, give me a call. We'll get it straight. We'll get it taken care of for them.
Cool.
Excellent. Great. So today we're actually discussing Alan Weiss and Lisa Larter's Masterful Marketing, how to dominate your market with a value-based approach. And I know, Michael, you and I were talking about this earlier. This is one of the shorter books that we've done, which makes it really nice for summer because you can throw it in a bag and not go over the, not strain your back.
Actually, I'm looking forward to, well, it won't show up with my background on. I'm looking forward to next month's Prove It because this one is really short.
Even smaller, right? Exactly.
I'm actually going to be able to get through that one on time.
Excellent. Well, great. This one, I think, John and I were actually just talking about this as well, John Williams and I, about how this one is actually a little bit more concise than a lot of marketing books that include a lot of puffery, to make them longer. This one has a lot of case studies and other things. So it's pretty nutrient dense, I guess, in the terms of how books go. You want to do first impressions? I guess that's my first impression. John, do you have anything to add or?
No, I'll be quiet on this one. I didn't get a lot of time on it.
You're confessing?
No.
Okay. Cool. How about you, Michael? Any first impressions or impressions?
Well, yes, first impression. Um, First impression was I looked at the cover, and
Mhm.
it wasn't overly impressive. I read the back when it came in. It's like, oh, that sounds interesting, but wasn't super impressed with the front cover. Didn't grab me.
Mhm.
So I just got back from a trip with my wife, and sadly, I was busily trying to finish up a previous book, which I did, which was great. So I accomplished my goal, and
Yeah.
then I started on this one actually last night,
Oh,
and
excellent.
and I wish I had spent that week with my wife working on this book instead, because as soon as I got into and the first couple of pages, and I always look at the beginning. I want to see, you know, have they written other works? When was it published? It was published last year in
Yeah.
September, and it's
Yeah.
like, wow, that's actually pretty quick. So this is
Right.
really recent. And
Yeah.
then I go through the list of the other works by the author, and I'm like, oh my goodness, what a list! And oh, by the way, it's like, oh, I have one of his previous books, which was interesting, and podcast series, video series, three newsletters, and a blog. It's like, oh my goodness, like this guy is serious about putting information out.
Yeah.
And then I read through the table of contents, and as I looked through it, it's like, wow, this is dense. You know,
Yeah.
a lot of times you see fluff, but it's like, wow, this really is dense. There seems to be a lot here. And so then I, headed into the introduction, and it's like, wow, this is good. And the very first page of chapter 1, he says there's three basic concepts, and it's like, I 100% agree. Number
Yeah.
one, we know what we want, but not always what we need. So
Mhm.
true. Number two, logic makes us think, but emotions make us act.
Mhm.
Again, absolutely. And number
Mhm.
three, I heard it slightly differently, but it's like, exactly. A luxury is only a luxury until used once, after which it's a necessity.
Right. And see, I had heard that first from you, and then I highlighted it when I saw it in the book because I'm
And it's
like,
like,
wow,
that's
that was in.
exactly what
Mhm.
we need to be marketing, is that, come try this thing that you may think is a luxury, but I'm telling you, once you've tried flying in an aircraft from not just an FBO, but from private air, where you
Yeah.
actually have a pilot that picks you up in, a Signature or Atlantic or one of these others. They pick you up, you walk out, you get in, you fly away. That's amazing. And once you've done that, it's like, I want to do this forever.
Right.
And
Then you
and
kind
I
of
remember
really
doing that as a
use.
kid, and
Yeah.
I was working for a large Fortune 500 corporation, and they
Mhm.
had a stable of their own private aircraft. And so when a big executive was going somewhere that I needed to go, it's like, hey, can I hop on the plane? Absolutely. It saves the
Yeah.
company a plane ticket, and it saves me a ton of hassle. And it's like, this is how you get work done. That's what,
Absolutely.
and so I'm really excited to get into the book. But I'm sorry, I got through page 7.
Cool. It's been that kind of month, but yeah, I totally agree with that. And have been so many. In fact, there was an article about how many first-time private jet flyers there have been in the last 2 years.
Yep.
And it's more than ever before. I don't remember the exact figures, but there are so many people who are really, really put out by having to fly commercial now
Yep.
because they have tasted that luxury and they just don't want to do it, and I totally understand that. But
Yeah.
yeah.
Private aviation, COVID was one of the best things that happened to private aviation. It has skyrocketed because the people that had the money but didn't think they could afford it have
Mhm.
realized they really can afford it, And this is definitely much better than First Class.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Right. John Davies, any first impressions or thoughts about
Well,
the book?
believe it or not, I actually read the book.
Good for
Problem
you.
is, problem is, I have no idea what I've done with it. I just thought it was in my bag over here and it's not there. Which, that's because I had stuff marked to bring up and I don't
Mhm.
know what I've done with it. So, but it's one of the few books that I actually kept going back to finish, to keep going forward. Because usually, like Mike said, you read the first couple pages and it's like, oh my God, I can't get through this.
Yeah, I've
So,
got 5 million other things to do. I can't sit down and settle. Yeah.
well, usually if I start to read, I end up going to sleep. So that's a problem. But I actually was reading the book quite often,
Mhm.
and I don't know what the heck I did with it,
Okay.
but it was very interesting. It was very informative. I got a few things out of it that I didn't expect to get out of it. Um,
I'm really happy to hear
started
that.
I started reading the new book, but
Mhm.
it's not grabbing me, at least not initially yet. But
Mhm.
we'll see. We'll see how
Yeah.
it goes. But every little, I like to learn something from everything well, not always that I read, because I read a lot of fiction
Mhm.
and nonfiction. But
That
lately,
can be just as educational.
yeah, well, I've been reading a lot of history books, which I never liked history while I was in high school, because all they wanted to do is look at dates. But I've been reading quite a few history books and things that happened in World War II, some in World War One, but business books don't always, marketing books don't always have the same pizzazz, but that's okay. There's
Mhm.
two different versions. So yeah, I wish I knew what to do with this damn book, but I enjoyed it. Uh,
Mhm.
I'm gonna look for some of his other stuff, and
Cool. Well, if you remember what it was that you wanted to refer to, I've got a couple of
I
examples
have
from.
no idea.
Okay.
I have
Um,
my brain retention has gone out the window.
I hear you.
Things to do. I,
There's a diagram on page 30, and when you find it, I'm sure you'll know which one I mean. And maybe this is one of the things that you wanted to talk about. But it's the matrix of passion and ability. And this, struck home for me because I think this is true of buyers, and it's also true of sellers. We will only do what we have an interest in, and we will only do, or we should only do, what we have some ability to do. And that's not true when we're younger, but once we've been working for a while, I think we have to be realistic about our abilities, right? uh, I once had a horse. Actually, it wasn't my horse, but it was a horse I was using for the summer that loved barrel racing. And the weird thing is, this was like a big, big horse. This was a big Morgan. I don't know if you're familiar with the horses, but these are not barrel racing horses. This was, like uh, about a 1.5 times the size of your usual barrel racing horse. And he loved barrel racing. So he had the passion for it, but he didn't have the ability. But, this was my horse for the summer. And, we loved barrel racing, but we never, ever, ever came close to winning. But we did it anyway, and that's fine when you're a kid. I think, you should try everything, whether or not you have an aptitude for it and so on. But, so on the matrix, if you have passion at the top, no passion at the bottom, ability on the left, no ability on the right, we were on the far quadrant of great passion and zero ability. So that was my story about that. And I think, there's a lot of people who are like that. And, you've got to appreciate their passion and things. But if you fall somewhere on that matrix where you can um, manage that, I think that's a good thing. So I love that matrix. And I think if we look at our prospects from that perspective, and we look at our clients from that perspective, what do you want to do with your marketing? And what do you avoid, what causes you fulfillment, frustration, boredom, avoidance, all of those different behaviors based on whether you love it or hate it and whether or not you have or don't have any ability. And so if we can help fill those gaps for people so that we can keep them on the right side of that quadrant, I think that's a big deal for us.
It's interesting. I heard someone challenge the advice that is often given to young people that they should follow their passion.
Mm-hmm.
And their point was similar to this quadrant chart, where they basically said, that's really bad advice. You hear it all the time. I remember even Steve Jobs saying, you have to go follow your passion. Mm-hmm. And I remember telling some of my kids, like, in my experience, that's not good advice. And this person basically made the argument, which falls in line with this quadrant chart, that you really need to focus on where you have ability. Mm-hmm. And the way I said it to my kids was, my experience has been that if you do the things that you have good ability for, you will often end up developing a passion for it. As you see the accomplishment from your ability, you will then, and you look at even Steve Jobs, my guess is he had great passion, but he had passion for those things that he had ability for, as opposed to developing an ability around things that he was passionate about. I think one is easier to develop than the other. It's harder to develop a passion, harder to develop ability around things that you're passionate for. I mean, you may want to play professional football or whatever it is, but it just ain't going to happen.
Right. Some of us are just not built for that.
Right. Yeah. But if you have a great ability, you can choose to be bored or passionate depending on how you approach it. Mm-hmm. And the passion is a choice. I'm good with numbers, but it doesn't mean I really like them. But I've learned to do the jobs that have to do with numbers because I'm good at them and they need to be done. Mm-hmm. And so if I choose to accept it, I can enjoy the job, or I can choose not to enjoy it. But either way, the job needs to be done and I'm good at it, so I might as well just go get it done.
Yeah. Stella, I don't know if you remember or if you were in one of the same AWAI courses when they talk about, there are writers who love writing, but most writers like to have written. They don't necessarily they don't necessarily enjoy the process. Does that sound familiar to you?
Well, yeah, it's like they look at the computer and they're like, blank screen. What do I write?
Right.
Versus once it's done, they're like, oh, look what I've accomplished. Yeah, exactly. So for many, I would say probably, I don't know, at least 50 or 60%. That's true. Mm-hmm. They don't have a passion for writing. They don't love to write. I do.
Good for you.
But, they look at that blank screen and they're like, oh no, what do I write? Where do I start?
Mm-hmm. See, and that's, I think, part of the reason that you and I work well together, because I enjoy having written and I enjoy outlining, but, the process of writing is not my favorite thing.
Oh, I hate outlining. I'd rather just dive in and get it done.
Excellent. Well, that's great. Right. So, that was one of the first things I saw in the book, and it just reminded me of my big old draft horse trying to barrel race. And, it was great fun, but not something we would ever do for a living, and I'm glad we weren't depending on prize money. All right. So another thing that stood out for me is there's nothing passive about passive income. They had a whole chapter on that. And I think there has been, in the last 10 years, this real fad around, let's build a business, a lifestyle business, that we don't have to pay much attention to. And, that struck me as absolutely true. Our initial intention, John and mine, when we started ABCI, was that it would just be the two of us and it would be a business that we could take on the road and do wherever. But two things happened. One is that we grew past our ability to fulfill. Number two is that we have to send mail from somewhere, like physical, actual mail. Our clients like it, and it has a nice perceived value, and it's a nice differentiator for us. And that is something that I'm not willing to give up. So those two things have wrecked my idea of it being a completely remote, completely independent business. And I think if most people are really listening to their customers or developing a business that is of any value, they're going to come quickly to the conclusion that it's going to require things of them that they may not have planned on to begin with. Have you guys found that to be true?
I would say that passive income is a well-marketed concept.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Making it come true is another story. Yes.
I don't think it's possible to make it come true. The only way you really have truly passive income is to make an investment and then walk away, and then
right, like an annuity or something that doesn't require thought, or
I mean, put your money into a bond or into a stock market or into a real estate investment, whatever it is. But you've lost control. If you're really going to be passive and do nothing, you are at the whim of the marketplace, and that may be fine. It may not be fine, but you have to decide: are you willing to truly be passive? If you want something to grow, you really have to put time and effort into it. I mean, that's just the law of the harvest. If you don't work at it, you're not going to get a return. And those that have quote passive income, they've worked at it, and they must continue to work at it, or it deteriorates.
Right.
Yeah, because I have affiliate marketing with my website, and it's not something I can just leave out there and it'll bring in all this money. I have to go add new links or new content, or update something to keep it coming in.
Right. Even if you're selling advertising. Right. John, you and Bill once had an adventure with investing that I think ended up, you spent a whole lot more time on that than was probably worth your time, right?
You mean the stock market?
Yeah. They spent more time on this
than... That was back when GM was selling for $2 a share and Ford was $1.99. And
that's been a while.
They're selling right now, aren't they?
So we got in there and I don't know, we maybe put 20,000, and he's good at that sort of thing. So I just said, go for it. And, but it was a lot of freaking work. You couldn't just sit by. I mean, we knew it was going to come back because it's cyclical. It's just a matter of when. But you have to keep watching, and you have to do things. And then even after we sold, I think GM was like 6 or 7 and Ford was at 5 or 6. I mean, we did well.
Yeah.
But then came tax time. And so each freaking trade, you have to, it's messy at tax time.
You have to fill out a separate form for each.
How you cut it is work. I mean, I got a friend of mine, a new friend, who does Bitcoin mining. I mean, you buy these machines and you stick it there and you push the button and go, and then you ignore it. Okay. And it makes you anywhere from $15 to a couple $100 a day. Well, that's fine and all, but the electricity to keep that running is expensive. So what he's done is long story short, he has a generator that runs on fuel that's basically free to him. And so now that's fine. So there's basically nothing to do except collect money at the end of the month. Except that he's got to make sure his generator's got fuel in it, and if the maintenance is performed. I mean, there's always something.
Oh, and I'm sure there's like software to update because these are servers and, all kinds of things.
Yeah, I mean,
Problems to
it's
solve.
never truly passive. Paul and I have explored that term in various and sundry businesses for 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
I never found any, you can get close.
Unless you outsource it.
But Mike is right. If you
Yeah.
ignore it, you
Well,
lose.
but even if, oh, sorry, go ahead.
I said, but Michael is right. If you ignore your business, whatever it is, it's supposed to be passive, it'll fall apart.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, to Stella's point, I think even outsourcing, there is a lot of work involved with framing a task, assigning a task, evaluating the task, deploying the result. So I would
You
kind
still
of
gotta
Right.
watch over them, even though you've outsourced.
Exactly. You got to trust that they're doing the job or
You can't
monitor
get
them.
anything for free. Trust me. If there was, I'd have found it a long time ago. But it
So
doesn't
would we.
exist.
Right.
Doesn't exist. Nothing is
You'd be
free.
very rich today.
Right. In spite of our best efforts, right.
If you don't want to work, you won't make any money.
Mhm. Right.
I work
Another
harder
kind of,
now than I ever did, and it's fine, but it's still not where I want to be. So I have to
yeah,
work a little harder, but that's okay. I don't have hard work. Has never bothered me.
yeah.
To see some of the younger groups, I just shake my head. I don't know how the country is going to continue to operate sooner. It's just like they don't want anything. They want everything for free, and they're entitled.
Well, we
Drives me
all,
crazy, but they're
mhm.
not all that way either.
Yeah,
So
well, I think we all went through that thought process though, of thinking, how can I make this easier? And you can leverage your effort to make it more efficient, and there's nothing wrong with doing that.
So
But
absolutely not.
I'm with
That's
you.
where the
Yeah.
lean processes came from. So that's the
Mhm.
whole point of them, is to bring the process, even though it's going to start here and end here. What can I do to make it go quicker, but still get
Mhm.
to the result of quality? So that's where the hard part is.
Absolutely. And that takes so much more thought than, do something once, systematize it, make it easier the second time, and so on. Good point. Another thing from the book that I really liked was they are departing. As Michael was saying, this book was published very recently. So like the last 10 years, all of the marketing has been kind of focused around the concept of a funnel, a V-shaped thing where you have a lot of people at the top, fewer people in the middle, fewer people at the bottom, and even a pipeline where people follow a series of steps to become a customer. And this book is getting away from that concept, saying there are so many different paths to your door. And there's a diagram on page 13 that talks about, kind of the stranger zone where you have the top of your funnel is really not a funnel. It's just a big mess of things where people do a bunch of different things. They were either referred to your website, they came in by social media, they came in by search, they subscribed, you found them by outreach, whatever it is. There are a million different ways. It's not a single pathway or a single process, the way a lot of the gurus have been, representing it over the last 10 years.
And
Well,
still
I don't
represent it.
think
And still represent it. Yeah, that's true. There are
I did
still,
find my book, by the way.
sorry?
So I did find my book. It was right
Good
next
for you.
to the left. It was there.
Good for you. I'm glad you found it. This is a good one.
I'd have been looking forever and never found it back there.
Right.
So one of the things when I was scanning the table of contents that I really liked was under chapter 3. Towards the end of it, says achieving results instead of chasing money.
Yes.
And he says there, it's not what we do that matters, it's what we create. And I've said it other ways, but I see people and myself sometimes, we're busy. There's lots of activity, but the question is, what did you get done?
Yeah.
And if you're not moving the business forward, if you're not moving your marketing forward, whatever it is, then so what? You know, you can do all kinds of things. You can have a giant funnel and whatever you want to do, or a big stranger zone, and gather all these things into your website. But if you're not actually accomplishing something, um, what good did you do? And that's really a problem that I find is I need to be able to assess, am I making progress? Did I actually create something? Did I move the ball forward, or did I just spend a lot of time, and not move the ball forward?
Yeah. Right. And I think a lot of us, especially in the service industry, or the service end of the aviation industry, we think about, is this client going to advance my business in some way by teaching me something new, or by giving me access to a different part of the market, or by building a relationship that I really want? Some customers are just basically, this is maybe not the best fit, and maybe we don't really like each other very much, but they have a lot of money and we should do the job anyway. And we used to do that at the beginning of our business. Would take anybody with a pulse and a checkbook that was in the aviation industry, and would do our best to make that relationship work. So I'm totally with you there. I think with those types of clients, we didn't feel as good about it at the end of the day. We maybe accomplished what they wanted, but we didn't feel like we were advancing the industry, or doing a lot of good for their customers, which is the ultimate goal. But yeah, I hear where you're coming from. Grumpy, did you find the part that you wanted to talk about? Is that
I did, but I don't know why I marked it.
That's cool.
In chapter 7,
Yeah.
the case study on page 118, I just thought that was funny in one respect, that the quality isn't worth it. He wrote this article and everybody was up in arms, and the guy says, I'll give you $50 to write a column every month. And he goes, well, they hated it. Yeah, they hated it, and they had comments, but they read it. So the next time you put something out there, they know you're going to. I'm not sure that really worked too well on my end, but it was just,
Yeah.
I just took it was kind of like taking a shot. And like you said, it's what's the saying? I don't know, at least they're looking at it. Just because it doesn't mean that the right thing, but the object of the game there was to get people to read the column and buy whatever magazine they were selling at the time.
Right. I think that was
the case study on 128 about Al Mapes, about how he's selling insurance to the employees. And even if they didn't have money, he'd sell them something and then come back every 6 months, get names from them. And then like you said, he had 260 clients and he generated 2,500 names that he could go to potentially buy insurance, which is, now he's a wealthy man, but that's using who you have to broaden your horizons, so to speak.
Right. And I love that trick he used to get the names. The guy was like, well, I really can't think of anybody at the moment and stuff. And so the guy asked his wife, could I trouble you for another cup of coffee? So of course the guy's sitting in his kitchen for another half hour.
It's not like he's being mean about it, but he just kind of, okay, you're not going to give me names, I'm not going to leave till you give me 3. So it's kind of like when I have an auditor from the FAA come in or from the company and do whatever, and they're looking over parts, and I know, and they're not going to leave until they find something. So I used to. I still do it, but I don't do it as much anymore because I don't have to. But I would put it something that was out of date, and say, let's go down this aisle. And sure enough, he'd find it because I'd point him right in the right direction and go, look at this, we missed this. I went, oh my, we'll take care of it. And then they left. So it was always just get them in, get them out. We knew we were good, but he wouldn't find anything, he wouldn't leave. So we'd put we position something and I'd steer them down the aisle and they'd go find it and then everybody'd be happy and they had something to put in their report and they'd leave. So it'd be on their way. So
Right.
maybe not the smartest idea, but it worked. So
Works. Yeah, absolutely. And I think, the concept of, if you don't get what you want, ask for something smaller and, be persistent in that. And then if you don't get what you want, ask for something smaller than that. And, if you can't make the sale, great, that's fine. Let's make a smaller sale. And if you can't get that, okay, let's get 3 names that you could refer me to. And if we can't get that, give me 1 name.
He did well.
Mhm. Yep, absolutely. I think that's a Ben Franklin thing, isn't it? The reduction of the ask.
I don't know. I'm old, but not that old. Come on.
Oh, I know. Well, I was there when he was negotiating the French Revolution and trying to get donations from the French diplomats. But he had this whole set of negotiating tactics, and it was basically you ask for something enormous, and if you don't get
Oh
that,
yeah, you always ask for more than you want, and then they'll give you something less. So I made that mistake this year on a budget. I put in for a lot. I put in for something, but not as much as I should have. And of course, they offered me less. So next time,
Mhm.
I made that mistake once. I won't make that again. So we'll double what we need, what we really don't need, but we want, and then I'll get what I want. So it's
Right.
all about. We'll get there.
Yeah, exactly. If I remember the story right, he was absolutely flabbergasted by the size of some of the donations he got while he was in France, trying to get money for the American Revolution. And he's just absolutely astonished that people said yes, sometimes. And, it was just a tactic, but sometimes it worked. And, if he didn't, he could always back up and ask for less. So that's a wonderful, wonderful concept. So.
True, even in labor negotiations. I did that many times.
Do tell.
Oh, I used to, well, as you know, I used to work in human resources and my specialty was labor negotiations.
Mhm.
And you still have hair. How is that possible?
I do, yes.
Holy cow. I was in union back in the day and I'm like, these negotiations, you know what? Lock them in the room. Don't let anybody out. Lock them in the room. And eventually someone's going to go, all right, this is working because I got to go to the bathroom. But
Yeah, never give them a break because then you lose whatever momentum you
Yep.
had going. Yeah. Yeah, I did that. Yeah, many years I was a labor negotiator and, anytime you went to the table for negotiation, you knew that their first ask, their first presentation was going to be way up here and nowhere near what you're going to actually give them. And just that whole process of, well, we can give you this, but we can't give you this. So if you want this, you got to come down on this. And, it was always interesting. And you could tell who was experienced in negotiation versus this was their first or second time doing it just by, what they asked for and how realistic or unrealistic it was. So yeah, it was always fun to kind of analyze the opponent across the table.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
There was a negotiation book that we read. John Williams, do you remember which one that was? I think Mickey was doing the was doing the book club at that time.
I remember the discussion, but I don't remember the name of the book.
I don't know, but whoever negotiated the UPS driver's contract, they should be happy. They should be crowned the king.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. When their drivers are going to make with benefits. Now see, they always forget to throw that in there, but even with the benefits at 170,000 a year for driving a truck is pretty impressive.
Yes, it is.
With air conditioning.
Yeah.
Well, that's coming. FedEx, I know a couple drivers. FedEx, they don't have a union, and the way they keep the union out is whenever UPS gives them a raise, they get a raise. So I'm waiting to see what happens on this one because this is quite substantial, and they don't want to give up, air conditioned trucks. I don't know how they operate without them, to be honest with you, especially the guys in Florida. They come out dripping. It's not that hot, but the humidity is like 250%. whatever, because it's.
Yeah, that open door, open window thing doesn't bring enough reason.
No, not in places that are super humid. That's for sure.
Exactly.
Yeah. Right. I'll have to figure out what book that was, because we might want to do that again. That was, I think, maybe 2 years ago, and it's time to do another great negotiation book. But yeah, that's an excellent point. I really also liked the CARE model, as opposed to the funnel. Create, attract, retain, expand. It's a circular model, kind of like our circle that we use for marketing. You create your audience by creating content. That's what you do. You generate that audience by creation, and then you attract the right people. You retain them by continually giving them more information and or starting a relationship and having that two-way conversation, and then you expand beyond your network into the next level, and so on. So yeah, I think that CARE is a nice acronym for that circular model, and I think that's a much more, what is the word, sustainable model than the funnel, especially in the aviation industry, because we have a limited number of prospects, right? So, if we did a funnel and we ran the whole prospect set through a funnel, we've had clients that had 78 possible prospects, because they did a specific service for a particular make and model of aircraft. So there were an entire universe of 78 possible customers for this person. They made a pretty good living at it, but still, once you run through that 78, what are you going to do?
Do it again.
Huh?
Do it again.
Do it again, right? So yeah, you either have to create another product for that same customer set and become a really, really good service provider for those 78 people. And I think it's Mark Lieber, that said you can run a multi-million-dollar industry with 100 contacts, as long as they are the right contacts and you have a really good relationship with those 100 contacts. And so I really like that idea, because it's a smaller model than most of the marketing that you learn in colleges, universities, things like that, are thinking Coca-Cola or t-shirts or candy or something, which is the opposite of aviation. So I like circular models much better than the run people through the funnel, make them run the gauntlet and start over kind of thing. Cool. Great. Yeah, Stella, that's an excellent book. Negotiation Genius Obstacles. I think I have I've read that one as well. And yeah, that's a good one to add to our list for 2024.
Another one is Objections, the Ultimate Guide for Mastering the Art and Science of Getting Past No. It's a newer one. It came out in 2018.
Okay. That's cool. Yeah, the one that we read, I think, was a military hostage negotiator that, yeah, seriously, it was like
yeah, they have some of those serious, books, FBI Negotiation 101.
Yeah, exactly. And that was the one that we read. And it was actually a lot of fun and also really educational. So yeah, that one was good too.
Well, if you want a educational one and you like Shakespearean negotiations.
Really?
Yeah.
Do you read them Shakespeare till they say, "I give up"?
It's streaming from the room.
Take me long. I give up. I give up.
It's probably, I don't know, 25, 30 years old. It's been out for a while, but it talks about social energy and whatnot. So it's a different take on negotiation. It isn't so much business negotiation, but if you like Shakespeare, which I do, it's a very interesting read.
Right. And of course you like Shakespeare. You're a writer. So, that's the OG, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
One of them.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Well, any famous last words about the book? Any thoughts about what we should do? We're putting together our book list and our calendar for 2024. We're trying to be more proactive and get those calendars done earlier than usual.
That's only 4 months away.
Oh my gosh.
I
Yeah,
know.
so third quarter, we'd really like to, well, at least the beginning of fourth quarter, we'd like to have our 2024 plans at least sort of roughed out. So if you have any thoughts about books or topics or anything else, we'd love to hear it. And you guys are here, so you get to say. And any famous last words about the book, we can just kind of go around the room and see what you have to say. John Williams, you want to start?
Oh, I think conceptually, all of these topics, the funnel and the care and all those other things, conceptually, they all say the same thing. It just, the devil, as they say, is in the details.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah, and the case studies, I think, were a great addition because they show how these things work. It wasn't just theory.
Yeah. So that's all.
Any thoughts about what we should be doing next year? Topics, books, ideas?
No.
Okay.
And the reason is because I'm working on a project that if it comes to fruition, I'm going to be busy.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Great. I totally understand. And we dragged you kicking and screaming. So thank you for being here. Michael Duke, any famous last words about the book?
Well, I look forward to finishing what I started. So I look forward to it. It looks very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
I would maybe put a different spin on what John just said. I'm not sure that all of the books say the same thing, but in a different way. I think there really are some insights that a few people have, and most people go around repackaging the same things. But I always look for those books that are different, that are truly insightful. One that comes quickly to mind is really a strategy book by Peter Thiel called 0 to 1. And the whole thing is contrarian. And I keep going back to it and rereading it because it is just so different than the way most people think about business. And yet, I think he's mostly right in the way he's discussing it. So it's kind of like Simon Sinek and start with why.
Yeah.
I think we all kind of intuitively understood that at some point, but nobody was ever saying it until he said it. And the fact that he said it when others didn't kind of caused us to stop and think and say, you're right. Why aren't we doing it like that?
Yeah.
And so I think there are periodically some truly insightful books that make us think differently, and those are the ones that I really look for. But they are hard to find because a lot of it's technique.
Yeah.
So different things for objections, asking questions, whatever. Techniques are always interesting, and there's lots of techniques, and if you know the right technique for a particular situation, that's awesome. If you don't know the technique, you're going to struggle.
Yeah.
But from a strategy standpoint, I think there really are some new insights every once in a while, and it's fun to find those.
Yeah.
In terms of then what do we read next year? I don't know. I guess, because being an entrepreneur and having to carry the ball in so many areas, it's important to me to be juggling different balls. So some of it's on branding, some of it's on marketing, some of it's on sales, some of it's on strategy. What should I be working on? How does my marketing and my branding, have to do with my business strategy or my customer targeting or whatever? So I think all of those things kind of fit in together. And I know this is really intended to be kind of a marketing group. But I would say if there's something out there that, fits in with marketing, let's give it a shot because certainly I'm having to do, you know, finance as well as marketing and branding and strategy and business planning and HR and all the other things. And so we touch on all of them. And, you know, hiring, you know, I read a really good book. I thought it was a really good book. I really liked it. And I have my two favorite hiring books. One is impossible to read, but it's a brilliant approach. And it was used by GE. And it's incredibly successful in finding, you know, good quality candidates. But it's impossible to read.
Okay.
And the other one is, you know, at the opposite end of the spectrum, much less data driven, but again, it's like truly insightful in terms of, you know, this makes sense. You know, this is how you identify the high performers. And so, you know, I'm always looking for those books that give me something new and isn't just a repackaging, like John said.
Okay. Right. And we do strive to put a mix together, you know, of dense versus theory, you know, and also sales versus marketing, you know, all of those things. But yeah, I appreciate that input. That's really helpful. Grumpy, what do you think?
Well,
Last words?
like I said, I liked the book, and I think I'm going to read it again because I got through it rather quickly, which is odd for a business marketing book for me. And because I think there's a lot of good ideas in there that I'm sure I've missed. Just like watching the movie, you watch it 3 times and you see something new every time.
Yeah.
So, but I am also reading this book, and I don't know how I even heard about this book, but it's called Super Connector. It's by Scott Gerber and Ryan Paul, Paughh. It says stop networking, start building business relationships that matter. And apparently they also wrote a book, Never Eat Alone, or maybe that was Keith Ferrazzi. I don't know.
Yeah,
but anyway,
I remember that one.
So I haven't read that one. I'm working on this one in between the other 2 books, but at least I'm trying to put new ideas into my head of what I can do to increase business to the appraisal business and not deal with so much having to deal with shaking hands and kissing babies. I mean, I still all part of the deal, but
yeah,
it's very difficult sometimes to get out there to shake hands and kiss babies, but I make attempts at it. But you know, there's only so many hours in a day, there's only so many days in a week. I'm sure Mike knows that. So it's, you know, I'm doing what I can, trying to improve every day, take one more step forward. But Mike, I do have a question for you. Your aircraft, I looked at it rather quickly. How many people does it carry?
The one right there is the first proof of concept, and that's designed to be 5 seats, a pilot plus 4. But the one that's kind of right here is probably the next one that we'll build, and that one's really designed to be a biz jet kind of aircraft. So 4 or 6 executives in you know, with a table in between, and 2 pilots. So it'll be larger.
Well, let me just throw this out there, and you can tell me to shut up. It's okay. But on the bigger one, when you get ready to do that, think about medical transport, because they're out west. They're running helicopters, but they're really running the Pilatus single engine turbines, and they need something like this.
Yeah, and that actually was part of the genesis of my involvement with the company. Is I had a daughter-in-law who was badly injured in a house fire and needed to be transported, and you know, they lived up in the oil fields of eastern Montana.
Yeah.
And so the nearest burn center was in Colorado. And it's like, how do you get, the 500-mile trip to Colorado? And the answer is a helicopter can't make it. It has to stop and refuel. So you end up then, doing ground-based transport, which means that you spend several hours in an ambulance, driving over bumpy roads and being bounced around while you've got, burns over 60, 70% of your body.
Yeah.
In an ambulance. I mean, it makes no sense. So definitely we're looking at, multiple uses. Certainly we think the business customer has the greatest ability in terms of cash flow and early adopter mentality, but there's certainly lots of other options from, cargo. If cargo is all about cost per ton mile. And we've got a lower cost per ton mile, that works. Medical transport, again, it's kind of, speed and cost to make it efficient. So there's lots of options once we have something that's fast and efficient. But yeah, thanks.
Okay.
Stella, you want to bring it home?
Well, I'm kind of like Grumpy. I read the book through very quickly on one of my flights back to the US. So I read it in less than 3 hours.
Wow.
But
3's faster than me. Sorry.
I'm a speed reader. What can I say? That's how I read 10 books a week. Come on.
Yeah.
But I think as we were talking about earlier, the whole funnel thing is, while everyone still likes to promote it, it's not really the true wave of what marketing is today to be successful, because so many companies out there are small companies serving some niche market or some niche area, and the big funnel concept just doesn't work when you're trying to do a true niche market. So some very good tips and ideas in there.
Great. Cool. And any thoughts about what we want to do next year?
I've already sent you several suggestions.
Oh, yes, you have. I guess that's true. Okay. Yeah. We can...
So beyond what I've already sent you, not off the top of my head, but if I find some, I'll send them your way.
You'll have 20 more books for you in another week or so.
Oh, great. Yeah, I mean, we've got 12 months, so it does get really hard. There's so many books, so little time, and so many topics, so little time. But, we do, and some things we want to do more than once. So, some of the webinar topics and other things we want to do more than once, because the first time is just getting your feet wet, and after that you're actually improving and making differences. And so you can only do so much in an hour. But, yeah.
Right. And a good 50% of my books are not business related.
Good for you. Good for you.
They're more entertainment, fun, whatnot. Yes. Well, that's why I live in Mexico. Come on.
There you go. It's all about making the life you want, right? And
exactly.
I thought business was fun and entertaining.
It is.
It can be.
Sometimes.
It can be. Sometimes it's not, but it can be.
Right. Absolutely. I know John and I are addicts, so we end up talking business even when we're on the beach. So that's crazy, but